Alright, part 2. This is an antler tine. It was longer. Since I've worked it down as a punch, it was probably about this long. It's drilled. You can do shiplap mating. You can bind. You don't have to drill. I just generally like to drill because I've got this honeysuckle dowel that's super light, a little bit flexible, and remarkably strong. I use this stuff just because it's invasive in Missouri and I've got tons of it, and just try to get rid of it. So I'll stick it in there. See how my tip is? You don't have to make your tips like that. I'm doing it. I'm working off this side because as you work into the antler, it's more pithy in the middle. So right off the main beam, it can get flaky. So just give that a little file down. I'll probably dress this a little bit more right here. And then sort of give preference as the antler gets softer towards one side or the other. It doesn't matter if it's top or the bottom. In this case, it's fairly straight, so I can work both sides. When tines are curved, you generally favor one side since it's harder to use that radius curve away. So, but this isn't so bad, so I'll probably turn this and work sides and both sides. I need to tap this in with the hammerstone. The length of this is, you know, a little less than 3 feet. I need to get a pad on the bottom. If you work with sticks just under your knee, on brittle materials, obsidian, no big deal. But if you don't have inward and a little flex when you use antler, you really need... I'm working with support in the hand, so I've got an anchor, and I've got enough flexibility in inward. I can sort of adjust my angle. So I'm under the knee, but this is anchored in the bottom. It can't just be on a hard surface because it'll kick. So you need a little bit of cushion, and then your knee acts like a fulcrum, so you can get some inward, and then you've also got the little flexi. You can move back and forth depending on how much you need, and it's just a matter of getting a feel for it. But people that I've seen do this, that their main problem is they're getting too rigid, too stout a pole, and then most of the time it's just a napping areas where they're not used to, they're over abrading their edges and they're floating, and so they're not getting the right angles and acute edges to punch off of. They're working off of, for the big flakes, they're working off of pretty heavy edges, and you need to do some nibbling and some preparation. That's where you can get the energy in right. So let's tap our tip in. Tap, tap, tap. This also serves to compress the tip of the antler a little bit. Brings the oils up, and when your antlers are getting bad, when they're pithy and soft, it's weird. Sometimes you can compress the oils in them and set them down, and even they can get a little moisture on them and just sit in the bag, and then a year later you pick them out and they've dried and they've hardened a little bit. Some antlers weather, and some antlers, depending on how much moisture and oil that's in there, they can, you know, don't chunk them necessarily just because you know, think that they're not working, because you can repurpose them after some time if you don't have a lot of antlers available. This is a tine. Brow tines are harder generally. There's a lot of variability between deer species, even when the species, some, you know, as a general rule, whitetail and mule deer is pretty good. And if you can get small deer that are spikes and use the skull and grind them down, then those work really well. Sometimes the bone at the bottom of the skull will be flaky, so you just get into the harder part and just start to look at the color and the hardness of it, and then just, you know, just start on thinner edges and work with resharpening if you're not comfortable doing the thinning, and then go from there. So, shoot, what I should do right now is end this because I need to get my anchor on the back, and then we'll start doing some punching. So I'll get it underneath my knee like this, get it on the ground, and then I'll work striking it with another bone here in a second. Hopefully you'll be able to see. I'll get this camera hopefully set up so you can see a kind of a decent angle.